Hi everybody, my name is Jens Larsen. Taking a lick or a phrase and moving it around all positions of the neck is probably one of the best scale exercises you can do. If you have a phrase that you like to play, then it'll contain small melodies and it'll contain specific arpeggios that you like to hear and that you want to use. And of course you want to find them in all the other positions that you play anyway. So really checking out all the positions and being able to play in all positions is also about finding those things, and moving a lick around is really helping you do that. At the same time, if you're trying to learn a new lick and you can play it in one position and you know what it sounds like, then moving it around to different positions is really helping you getting it into your ears and into your system, and a little bit further than just having it in your fingers in one position. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar, about improvising over chord changes, checking out some interesting arpeggios and chord voicings, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to make sure not to miss anything, then click the little bell notification icon next to the subscribe button. In jazz, we play music with a lot of different scales and a lot of different keys. And traditionally, we want to have vocabulary that we can use in whatever key, almost whatever chord, and in whatever situation and tempo we want to play it in. So we need to work towards that when we're playing, because that's something that's been part of the way we work on jazz since Charlie Parker, who famously did Cherokee in all 12 keys. On the guitar, the biggest problem is not really moving to another key, because we can just shift our hand to another position and then we're in that key. But sometimes that's not going to be the right register, and maybe it's not going to be easy to connect with the other things that we want to play. So we actually have to have the phrase and be able to play it in different positions. And you can work on that separately, and it's a very good way to really check out and really get deep into how to play in each position of the neck. For this video, I'm just going to talk about a simple 2-5-1 phrase in the key of C major, and then I'm going to move that around the neck and talk about how you work on this and what you get out of it. So the phrase is really simple. That's just this phrase. And if I play this phrase through all the positions, it sounds like this. The way I think about this is that I take the line and then I split it up into smaller chunks. So if we take the line, the first part of it will be this phrase. Now this I can move around because I'm thinking it's a D minor 7, I'm in the key of C major. So I'm just thinking about using the root. And then we get an arpeggio, which is the arpeggio from the third, so the F major 7 with a leading note and then played as a triplet. So, and of course, finding the D in all positions, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. And actually these arpeggios, so of course the diatonic arpeggios, you probably checked out in all positions. If you like bebop, then it's also likely that you actually checked them out with this leading note and as a triplet, like so these kind of things are easy to move around. So if I take it for the original phrases, like the next one will be, and so on and so forth. So in that way, that's kind of easy to move around, and I don't think about each individual note. I've identified what the whole phrase is and sort of what that big chunk is, and then that's what I'm moving around. And that way of thinking is really useful. And I do the same with the next bit. So this is kind of like an A minor pentatonic fragment to me. So in that way, these are sort of the small phrases that I move around, and that's what I'm using to get the whole line moved through the positions. And of course you want to be able to play this in the higher octave as well, because I mean, let's face it, this is pretty much a cliche line. It's the kind of thing you just want to have in there, and that you want to have as an opening thing, that you can maybe start with this arpeggio figure and then go into something else and make a completely different line out of it. It's going to be useful in all positions for sure. One thing is, of course, to analyze the line and figure out what the building blocks are and then find those in the different positions. Another thing is that you also, for each position, need to take a little bit of care with figuring out what kind of technique and technically what am I going to do to get this to sound right and make it playable. So when I play the line down here, then I can actually, for this D minor part, I can quite easily just alternate pick everything. If I'm playing it up here, then it just makes a little bit more sense to make use of a slide. So it kind of helps you just try out and find different ways to solve problems and to get things to sound right in different positions. And this is something that's really useful because it's really going to make you flexible in how you play different things, and also that you're really focused on getting the right phrasing out of each line. This exercise is really helping you identify the phrases that you like to use and then check them out all over the neck so that you have them available wherever you want to play. And especially if you're using licks that you really like the sound of, you're of course going to get a lot out of those, because those are kind of the phrases that you probably want to play everywhere anyway. It's also helping you when you're analyzing to start thinking in chunks. Now, thinking in chunks is something that's really important. It's important to realize that a longer phrase consists of smaller phrases, and that we can't think, when we're improvising, we really cannot think about all the notes. So we have to think in sort of building blocks of maybe 4 or 5 notes. It really depends on how fast we're playing, and then use those and chain different phrases together. And we have to do that by just kind of hearing what the phrase is, because we can't think about the notes. So learning those blocks and identifying them and thinking like that when you're moving around is really helping. And of course, thinking in chunks is also something that's very useful if you want to read or if you want to understand how a lick is constructed. Another advantage is also that when you start moving phrases around to other positions, then we can evaluate what kind of technique we can use to play it. Because in some places you might be able to sweep an arpeggio, but in other places that's not possible. What do you do then? How does it sound? Can you make a version? Can you maybe use legato in some places to make it easier to play? Those are kind of things that are really useful to check out, because we have to have a practical approach to our technique, and we have to be aware of when something is possible and when it isn't possible. So I'm curious if you're working with moving around phrases in different positions. I pretty much assume that we all take scale exercises and play that through all the positions. But at the same time, I think this idea of really taking something that's a lick, which is really just closer to playing a real piece of music, and then using that to train our ability to move through positions, is something that's very useful. So if you have a way that you're using this, and especially if you have a different way than what I'm doing, then I would love to hear about it in the comments on this video. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar and this is the first time you see one of my videos, then subscribe to my channel. The videos that I publish on this channel are all about finding good methods and solid strategies to improve and check out new interesting things about jazz guitar. If you have a question or an idea for a topic, then leave a comment on this video, because that's kind of how I get a lot of the topics that I make videos on. If you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page. I'm very grateful for the support that I'm getting from my patrons, and it's because of that that I can keep making videos every week. If you join us on Patreon, I can also give you something in return for your support. That's about it for this week. Thank you for watching, and until next week.